Never before has the Kremlin sent such a powerful signal. In just 24 hours, Vladimir Putin made 5 direct phone calls to the world's most powerful leaders, including those from China, India, Belarus, and even Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. These weren't casual greetings, but a series of secretive talks scheduled with precision, like clockwork, ahead of a fateful meeting with Donald Trump. This meeting could reshape the global power balance. The atmosphere in Europe and Kyiv is thick with unease. If these 5 calls are pieces of a larger agreement, then the security order in the region, and possibly the entire world, could be flipped with just one handshake. The big question is, what exactly were the 5 mysterious phone calls about? And why did they send chills down the spine of the West? On the 15th of next month, the world will witness a moment that both Russian and American media are calling a historic trip. President Vladimir Putin will set foot in Alaska, the northernmost part of the United States, a place never before visited by any Russian or Soviet leader. Alaska holds significant historical and geographical meaning, having once belonged to Russia before being sold to the U.S. in 1867. This location is also a strategic political move. Many observers liken the upcoming meeting between Putin and Trump to a new Tehran conference, where during World War II, superpowers like Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill met to reshape the world order. For weeks, media from both sides have hinted at the heated topics that will be discussed at the negotiating table in Alaska. According to the Kremlin, a primary concern will be finding a long-term peace solution for the Ukrainian conflict, which has become a major sticking point in U.S.-Russia relations and a security threat for Europe. But there's more. Russia also revealed that the two sides could see opportunities for cooperation in Alaska and the Arctic, areas rich in resources and strategic locations that could shape future energy and shipping routes. This only heightens NATO's fears that Washington and Moscow might find common ground that goes far beyond Ukraine. From the U.S. side, President Trump has openly stated that a peace deal for Ukraine might involve territorial exchanges. He described the situation as complex, suggesting that some areas may be taken back, while others exchanged for the benefit of both sides. Trump hasn't revealed specifics, but just the idea of territorial swaps is enough to make Kyiv and Europe shiver. For them, this would essentially legitimize the territories Russia has taken by force. The Bram newspaper has reported that the U.S. and Russia are discussing a ceasefire agreement. Under this deal, Russia would retain the territories it has captured. In exchange, Moscow would halt attacks on areas like Donetsk and Zaporizhia. Some terms are being drafted, but the big question remains: will Russia agree to give up any land, especially the Zaporizhia nuclear plant? Moscow still demands that Ukraine recognize Russia's sovereignty over Crimea and 4 regions: Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, with the condition that Kyiv must withdraw its troops. Meanwhile, Ukraine remains adamant that it will not trade land for peace, with tensions escalating as Russia has recently ramped up attacks in eastern Ukraine to create an internal security buffer on the enemy's land. This tactic pressures Ukraine both militarily and diplomatically. In just 3 days, Putin had a series of high-profile diplomatic engagements, hosted Malaysia's Sultan Ibrahim, an influential figure in Southeast Asia and key economic player in the region, met with the UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed to discuss potential sites for U.S.-Russia talks, held talks with India's National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval, a key figure in shaping India's defense policies and Russia relations. On the evening of September 10th, Putin dialed South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, chairing the BRICS summit, to discuss future steps for the group. Then, on September 8th, everything came together in a flurry of phone calls. First, Uzbekistan's President Shavkat Mirziyoyev received a call from Putin with a summary of the talks with Trump's envoy. 15 minutes later, Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev also had a conversation. Putin then called Chinese President Xi Jinping to update him on U.S.-Russia talks, with Xi's response mixing political support with deeper implications. China expressed pleasure at the ongoing U.S.-Russia dialogue and reiterated its support for a long-term peace solution to the Ukraine crisis. Beijing even noted the significance of Putin's upcoming visit to China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. Observers believe the Kremlin has already prepared its answer to the proposals from the U.S., but instead of sending it directly to Washington, Putin has used these calls to Gauge reactions. Build consensus. Putin is sticking to his core conditions for declaring a military victory. Ukraine must recognize Russia's territories and Crimea as part of Russia. Ukraine must demilitarize and remain neutral. Ukraine must not join any military alliances or possess nuclear weapons. Ukraine must eliminate neo-fascist elements from its government and military. Ukraine must guarantee the rights of Russian-speaking citizens. Ukraine must remove all Western sanctions. The European Union has proposed a ceasefire before any further action. Reciprocal territorial exchanges. Ukraine must be guaranteed security from external powers. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has remained firm. Any peace agreement must include Ukraine's participation. He welcomes constructive dialogue between Trump and Putin, but the path to peace must be determined with Ukraine, and only with Ukraine. If the US and Russia reach an agreement at Alaska, Ukraine fears losing control of the negotiations, being forced to make territorial concessions for peace. Europe is worried about NATO fracturing, with the security structure of the continent potentially being redefined by a deal that the EU cannot control. As the world watches Moscow's every move before Alaska, analysts believe the Kremlin has already prepared a message for Washington. This message won't come directly, but through these diplomatic exchanges. Putin's diplomatic strategy is clear. Russia is not entering Alaska as a supplicant, but as a power player with strong alliances across the globe. Should a US-Russia deal emerge from Alaska, the security order in Europe could be upended, with Ukraine's fate potentially decided by those outside of Kiev's control.